Sometimes I swear. Does that matter?
No, we don't subscribe to broadcasting fucking standards. All right, we're here with Janet. Dan, Janet's your guest.
Yeah, Janet. So I reached out to Janet, or someone who works for you, a few days ago, because I saw a news article. This article said that this is rehab center, but all the money that's being seized from, gangs when they get their motorbikes seized and all this cash, it's not going back to rehabs anymore. Now they're putting up more bollards because of all the ram raids. So Janet has come. Thank you very much for coming. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Janet. I'm the CEO.
Hey, Janet.
Yeah, I actually am also an alcoholic as well. So that's why I'm very, very passionate about helping the sick and suffering. So I run a charity. So we're a charity. We're a not-for-profit. And we've been going for 10 years in Aotearoa.
Aotearoa?
Aotearoa. Yeah, Aotearoa.
What are their pronouns?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, we made a decision. Our program worked pretty well for alcoholics and for addicts, but it was based on the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the addicts, a lot of addicts got well coming through our program, but I really felt like we needed to do something more for the addicts than what we were doing. So we made this decision, and we talked to the ministry, we talked to all the right people about what we wanted to do, and that was to start a clinical evidence-based program for meth addicts in particular. Have a cultural component to it, because we needed that to get government funding, and also it was a good thing to do. But also keep a strong alignment to the 12-step fellowship. So the pathway that we kind of mapped out was that we would start a pilot program and get funded through the Proceeds of Crime Fund, because one of their top criteria of the Proceeds of Crime Fund is to fund innovative drug and rehabilitation services.
Yeah, the money that they spent should go back to them.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that really annoys me is that there's a lot of addicts in jail, and they've done bad things, and there needs to be a consequence for it. But addicts aren't necessarily bad people. They're really sick people.
Nobody signs up for an addiction.
No.
Nobody wakes up and goes, that cocaine sounds like a good way to fuck my life up.
I know.
I mean, you might decide to have a cigarette, but you didn't sign up for a pack-a-day habit for the rest of your life.
I know. And the stigma and the shame and the guilt around addiction and alcoholism stops people from coming forward until they're in a situation where they're about to be punished for being an addict. So they've got into this cycle where they've used the drug, they've then got addicted to the drug, they've had to do some behaviours that aren't acceptable to society to be able to fund the drug. They then get so caught up in it that it's just a vicious cycle, and so they end up being put in jail. And I don't know if you know any addicts, but an addict or an alcoholic in their
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you walk down the street to them?
Yeah, an addict or an alcoholic in their own company is in really, really bad company. And what we're doing to addicts at the moment is we're putting them in a jail cell and saying, sit here for 22 hours and just think about the shit that's going on in your head. It doesn't make them better.
Yeah.
We had 26 beds in South Auckland. We had a successful program that was going really, really well, and those beds are now sitting empty. It breaks my heart.
How much does it cost? Like, do you break it down to a per person, or is it a per program? Or is it
so what our proposal was, it depends on the length of the program, but what our proposal was going to be to the Proceeds of Crime Fund was that it would be a 12 or a 16-week program, and it would carry on for 52 weeks with an aftercare program. So it would be a residential program for 12 or 16 weeks. And look, there's a lot of government-funded programs that do a really, really good job, but I think our difference is that we're actually a caring and nurturing program. So people walk in our door, and we say to them, look, we'll believe in you till you can believe in yourself, and we'll love you till you can love yourself.
So we test them to see if they stay sober?
Yeah, there's random drug tests.
Right, and if you don't pass the drug test, though, you're out.
We exit you with love. We don't kick you out onto the street. We say, look, you're going to have to go. let's work with you to find somewhere to go. So, they're an addict. It's a disease of it's a disease of denial. So
We just had a guy on a couple of days ago, and he was at what house was he at? Greg, and he was like, it changed his life. It saved him.
yeah.
Oh, Greg, the security guy. Yeah.
Was that through the Grace Foundation?
It was
Yeah,
through the Grace Foundation.
there's a lot of places out there doing
Well
really
done,
good
yeah.
work, and I don't want to take away anything from those people, but and to
Isn't
get
there
back
a
to your
shortage
point,
of rehab facilities?
yeah,
Is that what
there
the stats are?
There is. My understanding is it costs about $120,000 a year to keep somebody in jail.
Right.
We could have put somebody through a 16-week residential program for $35,000, and then an extra $10,000 to $12,000 to keep an aftercare program for the next 40 weeks to keep them clean for a year. And the math speaks for itself.
It does take up. And, all these right-wing politicians are saying, you've got to get hard on crime, we've got to, punish these people, we're going to put bracelets on teenagers. And it's like, okay, but what are you going to do at the other end?
Yeah.
What are you going to do to support these families so that they're not desperate, so that they are attending school? So, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this, Dan, but I know that there's kids at your school that are struggling. So
That are ram raiding.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what's taken away your funding, is it? Because they're trying to find, we've got to stop the ram raiding, we've got to stop it, and the only solution there seems to be, well, where can we get money from? Well, we'll take it away from people who are in recovery.
Yeah.
Is alcoholism or addiction? Is it genetic, or is it? I mean,
It can be, but not necessarily.
I mean, what's the difference between an enthusiastic consumer and an addict?
An enthusiastic consumer, when things start to turn to shit, they can say, okay, things are starting to turn to shit. Maybe I need to drink a little bit less. Maybe I need to use a little bit less. Maybe I just need to do something different. And sometimes, it takes them a while to realise that. But once they realise it, they can make the decision and they can cut down. An alcoholic or an addict, one's too many and 1,000's not enough.
Right. Yeah.
So it's one of these things where you just, if I were to take a drink, it would just make me thirsty.
Do you think it's quite similar to meth addicts and the fact that they never get enough?
No, it's just a cycle, and you
Chasing the
need
dragon.
more and more. It's like it's like dancing with a gorilla. You think you're in charge, but if the gorilla wants to go one way, well then you're going that way. Yeah.
So what's the situation like now? Where are you at now?
So we're still going up in Warkworth. So what we did when we made this decision is we separated out the alcohol program, and we've got a facility in Warkworth where we've got a program for alcoholics only, and it's based on the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's going really well, and it's private, it's user pays, it's never going to get government funding. We don't want government funding for it. So that's going strong. We've got a waiting list, and that's going really well. It breaks my heart to say that there's 26 beds sitting empty in South Auckland.
Right.
I mean, it just beggars belief.
And it's all genders?
All genders, all cultures,
But it's
no
still,
discrimination.
It's still open now. It hasn't closed yet.
No, it's closed.
It is closed.
It's closed. A place to be was what we called. We adopted that name last year for the meth, the evidence-based clinical program. And and that a place to be loved, a place to be nurtured, a place to be cared for, a place to get well.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing is that when we closed, there were 12 people who were in recovery themselves who lost jobs, and it's not always easy for people who are wearing bracelets themselves or have been through addiction themselves to actually get jobs. So we had to make 12 really, really good people redundant. It's I just don't even know what to say, because the economics of it makes sense.
Why isn't the government putting more money into rehab facilities?
Yeah, well, that's a question for the government, I guess. But You know, I guess they're in a difficult position. I mean, there's never going to be enough money to fund everything. But what I do know, and I know from my experience, putting these people in jail, putting addicts in jail, I'm not talking about the big guys that, you know, are causing all the problems. They deserve to be punished and they should be punished. I'm talking about your addict who is committing crime to fund their addiction. There's no good at all putting them in jail. They just come out better criminals.
Right, and with less community.
Yeah, and hating the establishment.
And I mean,
maybe
our
in the game.
prison system seems to be a dumping ground for the mentally ill. I mean, a lot of talk lately about, you know, certain characters on Karangahape Road who are a danger to themselves, and yet who do you call?
Yeah.
You know, where are the, you know, in the 90s, in the Helen Clark government's wisdom, they closed down Carrington and all these mental health facilities.
Hamner Springs.
And, you know, now it's like, oh, they have the, you know, they're all going to live lovely in the community, and it's just a disaster.
Yeah. Some people need help, but one of the interesting things is the Helen Clark Foundation came out just about on the same week that we were closing down, really advocating to treat meth addiction as a health issue.
Okay.
and we want to treat it as a health issue.
Yeah, isn't it Portugal that basically legalised all narcotics, all drugs, and treated addiction as a health issue rather than a crime issue?
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 countries that have done it, but what I love about Portugal, what I understand of what happened in Portugal, is both the opposition and the ruling party got together, and they made an agreement that, look, we're going to. I don't think they legalised, but I think they decriminalised, and I don't really know the difference between that. But anyway, it was okay that you could, and you weren't going to be sent to jail for using drugs. You were still going to be sent to jail for, you know, supply and cooking.
So how about a place to be? If you're sent there, what's a day in the life or a day in the week there like?
Okay, so you're up at 8 o'clock in the morning. By 8 o'clock in the morning, you're expected to have had your breakfast, had any medication that you need, and that you're ready to start. We start the day with meditation and reading some readings from out of the NA literature. 8:30, you'll be in a clinical group for the rest of the morning, really, and there's a couple of breaks in between. In the afternoon, you're either out on an outing, you know, going for a walk, going back to nature. You've got one day where you're shopping. You've got one day where you're giving back, so you're doing service of some sort. Sometimes other addicts come in and do their experience, strength and hope, share their story. Then we have dinner, and at night we go to an NA meeting.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's a pretty full-on day, and I mean, a lot of people just have to get used to getting up in the morning.
Yeah, having a routine.
Yeah, and having good food. I mean, our food is amazing. We had an amazing chef, and it's just...
that sounds like a better experience than prison.
Do you think there's an argument for mandating rehabilitation services when, I mean, as I understand it, a lot of times when people are going through the court system, they will choose jail over a treatment program because jail allows them to continue their drug use. Whereas this was this guy that wrote this book called San Francisco, and he was actually saying that when I was talking about extreme liberal policies which are contributing exponentially to poverty in places like San Francisco and even England, where drug use has become so rampant that the police have even stopped kind of prosecuting people because they just you know, go through the mill of the court system. Where this guy argued that if rehabilitation programs are mandated, there's actually quite a high level of success.
Yeah, we're at the moment in the Auckland and the Waitakere courts, and it's just gone to the Hamilton court, is alcohol and drug courts.
Yeah.
And they're really successful. They're really changing some lives around.
That's fantastic.
You know, the judge doesn't sit up in the thing. The judges, down
Equal level.
alongside with the people and celebrate success. Those alcohol and drug courts are going real well, but we didn't get any people from the alcohol and drug courts because we're not government funded. The same as our guests, they might have been beneficiaries, but they couldn't get the same amount of money that beneficiaries that were in a government funded establishment got. So
there's a disconnect there.
There's a huge disconnect, and it really I don't know. It just beggars belief that
do you get
we've had to
exhausted?
close.
Do you kind of get to the point where it's like, oh Jesus, I'm gonna have a drink?
I've got a passion to help the sick and suffering. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why this has happened, but I just see the good in people, and sometimes people have shat on me, and people say, oh my God, why do you keep going? Well, I keep going because even those people that shit on me, they didn't wake up that morning and want to be a bad person. They woke up that morning and the circumstances have said to them, it's a good idea to have that drink or have that drug. And everybody around them, their families, know it's a terrible idea for them to have a drink or a drug. But they're powerless over it. They just can't say no.
You don't blame them.
Not at all.
What amuses me most about addicts is that they think nobody can tell.
I know. I know.
It's like, I'm not stoned at all, man.
Well, also too, and they've also got this inherent belief that next time's going to be different. If I just try a little bit harder, and that's the thing that I want to say to any alcoholic or addict out there. Don't think that you're a weak-willed person. Don't think that you're a failure. You're not. You're actually just a sick person that needs some help. And unfortunately, in my experience, you can't beat this thing on your own. Like if, God forbid it didn't happen, but if somebody said to you, look, you've got this terrible disease and it's called cancer, and here's the solution.
Yeah. You jump at it.
Yeah, you're going to jump at it. But what addicts do is they say, okay, we've got this serious disease, we can see there's a solution here, but maybe if we just try a little bit harder, maybe we'll get ourselves better.
I'm only going to get stoned on special occasions, like Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And then maybe Thursday if it's sunny.
Yeah. Oh, and that didn't really cut it, so maybe I'll start on Monday.
That's why the meetings are so important, right?
Yeah.
You need to be reminded daily, or some people, I know. Yeah.
You need that support. I found that when I was on the street. I think there's kind of this, I don't know if it's Kiwi mentality or it's just human nature, that it's like, I got myself into this position, I'll get myself out. And there's so many people, so many good people like you, Janet, that are there to help. And, you really need to take advantage of those services that are available.
Well, people are too afraid to ask for help because, I mean, they feel inside, they just feel so like they've let everybody down, they've let themselves down. They feel so embarrassed, so ashamed, so guilty of, how did this happen to me? How did a good person like me?
Where's a good first place for somebody to go who wants to reach out for help?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the circumstances. Just telling anybody that, hey, I think I might have a bit of a problem. So it could be a family member, it could be a friend. It depends on your circumstances. You could ring up 0800 AA and 0800 NA. Those helplines are 24/7. There's always somebody at the end of the phone. I volunteer on them, so sometimes it'll be me on the end of the phone.
Yeah, no, and we published a lot of help numbers in the Chronicle, and there's been a couple of times where it's been like, it's 2:00 in the morning. I want to call this number and actually see if somebody's there. And, they're there. And it's like, oh, sorry, I'm just writing up the latest issue of the Chronicle. I wanted to see if this number actually worked. And they're like, hey, that's fine. That's cool, And I think it's easy to go down that negative path, especially when you're not quite thinking clearly that the world does suck and everyone's out to get you, and why shouldn't you shoot up, or why shouldn't you be able to do a line of speed, or and I've got friends that take amphetamines recreationally, and they seem to be fine with that. It's not my buzz, but I don't know. It's like it's like smoking. You start having a social cigarette when you're out and about because your mates are smoking, and you feel cool, and and then like that once a weekend drink it when you're smoking, when you're having a drink, becomes first thing in the morning, and then at lunchtime, and then before you know it, you're a pack or two a day.
I mean, I'm not saying that people shouldn't drink and use drugs recreationally if that's what they want to do. But what I am saying is that there's certain members of our population who can't use alcohol or drugs safely.
We had this really interesting woman from Aotearoa Trust come in, Trish, a couple of months ago, talking about harm reduction. And she was saying, none of us are out here saying, look, don't do this, just say no. What we are saying is that if you do have a problem, there's help available. And, if you do choose to use, then do it wisely.
Yeah. I believe, and I might be wrong, that one of the reasons why we haven't been able to get any traction with government funding is that we're abstinence-based. So the harm reduction model, we think, doesn't work. If you're a true alcoholic or an addict, once you have one, it starts a phenomenon of craving.
Yeah.
And so our program is abstinence based. The government prefer a harm reduction model. I'm almost certain that they do. And look, if you're a heavy drinker and you're not an alcoholic, using that analogy, then a harm reduction model works well.
But some people,
if you're an alcoholic, if you have one, what I said before, one's not enough, and one's too many, and 1,000's not enough.
Can you talk about your journey at all?
I guess so. I mean, I there's no alcoholism at all in my family, so that question you asked before about genetics is there's no alcoholism in my family, and I was very successful. When I came into recovery, I was the CEO of a company. I was doing really, really well, and I had been a social drinker for years and years and years, and I don't know what happened. And all of a sudden I became dependent on alcohol. I couldn't live life on life's terms without using alcohol to help me through the day.
So you were drinking at work?
I never took a morning drink because I didn't want to be an alcoholic. So I thought if I don't take a morning drink, I can't be an alcoholic. Right. So I never took a morning drink. I had this
12:15
p.m. No. 5 o'clock was my thing.
Right.
So I never drank before 5 o'clock, and that's the thing. You see, people think alcoholics have to be living under a bridge and drinking methylated spirits. There's a lot of very successful, very smart, very creative, very, very fun alcoholics and addicts.
Well, that's good you're a CEO again now. Right?
Yeah, of a charity.
Yeah. Even better, I'm sure.
Well, I've found my niche. I've found my passion. My passion is to help the sick and the suffering, and so that's really good. So, in my case, I know that I can't have a drink, and I'm okay with that. I wasn't initially. I thought, how am I ever going to get through life without having a drink? Because I couldn't imagine a life without it.
I bet you get invited to a lot of parties as the designated driver.
Yeah, well, I get invited to a lot of parties because I'm actually fun to be around. I'm not falling asleep in the corner anymore.
Oh my God! Look, there's a couple of characters on K Road that spring to mind, and they think they're witty and engaging and entertaining, and honestly, they are not.
When you're sober and you're around a whole lot of drunk people, you realise how unengaging they are.
Disconnected.
Yeah. They think you're deaf, so they have to yell at you. They say the same thing 3 times because you don't get it. Yeah, but anyway, no, it's a good life. It's a good life sober, and one of our challenges, I guess, is to try and cut through that stigma of alcoholism and addiction. So it is okay for people to ask for help.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to ask for help. And I was too ashamed and embarrassed because I thought I thought I was a failure, that I couldn't deal with it myself. And that stopped me from asking for help for a long time.
Did you meet any rock stars in rehab?
Couldn't possibly say.
It's anonymous, right?
Yeah. But look, alcoholism and addiction doesn't discriminate. It takes people from all walks of life, all genders, all ages. You know, it just doesn't discriminate. And meth in particular is you know, a lot of people's dirty little secret that that they would. You might have used at a university to help you get you know, to be able to stay awake to do.
We have someone at university here now.
Hello.
Are you a meth head, Sarah?
Only secretly.
It's not a secret now.
Yeah.
Hey, just while we do that, I just want to welcome Sarah on board to the Chronicle team. Sarah is studying at Auckland University,
Yep. That's
studying journalism, and she loves me. I mean, what's not to love? So she reached out to me earlier this week and said, "Hey, can I get on board the Chronicle?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, that sounds like less work for me."
It's great. We're all reaching out. I reached out to you. You
Yeah.
reached out to 6. People should reach out for help
They
if they need
they
it.
should reach out for help, because the funny thing is when you say, "I can't do this anymore, I need help," the help's actually there.
It is.
Yeah, but it's just it's almost impossible at some times to be able to ask for help. And just going back to having addicts in jail, which is my little soapbox that I'm on at the moment, is that if nothing changes, nothing changes. So you put an addict into jail and you don't give them any rehabilitation, they just come out.
Guess what?
Yeah, nothing changes.
Yeah.
They just come out having probably got better contacts than what they had before they went in.
Yeah. Hey, look, Janet. Hey, Janet. I got something to say.
What's that, Brad?
I really like the skillful way you've conducted yourself during this interview. And just before we wrap up, because do appreciate you coming in, appreciate Sarah's help as well, and Dan, of course. Do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Look, all I have is my own experience, and I would never look to give wisdom to anyone else. But if there's anybody listening, and if you know somebody that you think might be struggling with an addiction or alcoholism, just make it okay for them to ask for help.
Yeah. Have you read Matthew Perry's?
I've got it at the moment.
Yeah.
I haven't got all the way through
There's
it
a
yet.
really I watched the stage interview with him, and he's talking about how he was going to therapy, and the therapist said, "You know what, Matthew, it's not your fault." And that was the kind of light bulb moment for him. It's like, yeah, I'm sick.
Yeah. It isn't something I've chosen for myself.
Yeah.
But now that I've got it, I've got to accept that I've got it, and I've got to do something about
Yeah.
it. Otherwise, it's just going to turn to shit, even bigger shit than what it already is.
Well, this wasn't shit. This was awesome. Thank you, Janet. Really
No
appreciate you
worries.
coming on. It's been great. And good
Sarah?
luck for getting. Hopefully, you're going to get it back going again.
Yeah.
You'll find another place to be.
Look, we'll include the rehab and all the numbers that we can possibly find. Add that to the post online, so that if you want to get in touch with somebody, you can, because knowledge is power. I want to just, before we wrap up, thank my sponsors: Peachy Restaurant, White Lady Saloon Bar, Salt and Batter Fish and Chip Shop, Archo's, Lifewise. I'm sure I left somebody out and they're going to go. So if you want to support what we're doing, check out the Patreon page. There's exclusive content on there. Picture of Dan naked. Yeah, look, I want to thank Sarah and all our guests, because we just clicked over 2,000 downloads.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thanks,
Janet.
Janet.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Janet.
Janet.